Cool. And what I would suggest is, on your phone or something, just jump onto the YouTube stream just to make sure the sound's okay. That's always my fear, is that we'll do a, I'll blather on and then the sound will be crap. Oh, actually, another way, other thing we can do to test it is if I just turn this up for a second. Test, 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 test. Yep, that's working. So go to the meetup page and just hit grab the YouTube link from there. That's the easiest way to do it. And this one, oh, there's 4 people online. Right. Hey, everyone who's online, if you can hear us, can you just drop a quick note into the chat? I'll be kicking off in just a moment for those online. Thank you, Ratika. Oh, sorry, Ratika's on already, so all good. Yep, perfect. So just remember that you'll need that as well. Make sure the light is on in green. Yep, let's do it. Right, everyone, get it going, grab a seat. You won't hear any sound coming out. So you just have to deal with that weirdness. But the people online will appreciate it.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming for another Product Tank event. Especially in Tauranga, people coming in person is really good to see faces out in the evening. And all those who are joining online, and all those lazy people who are going to watch this recording later. So, okay, so this community is not only restricted to product people, it's actually about every team which is involved into a digital development, be it design, be it the analyst, the product people, testers. So we would love to know multiple use cases. We discuss topics which connect to every part of the digital development. Tauranga is a small community, and we are constantly looking out for people to collaborate and know more what's happening in the industry. It's not only the development side, it's the commercial side, it's the marketing side, and of course the latest trends happening in the market. A quick shout out to Tauranga City Council for providing us this beautiful venue, and it's nice and warm here, it's not cold. And a big thank you to Product Authority community for all the snacks we're enjoying today. So thank you. A quick safety measure, we have got the toilets outside on the right, and the fire exit is outside on the left. Before I introduce the speaker, for everyone who's online, if you have a question, you can pop it in the chat and somebody will take care of it. Yeah. Now it's time to introduce a very special speaker. He's come specially from Auckland, Anthony Marta. He's a product veteran coach. He has got a big repertoire of knowledge, has worked not only into product organization, but non-product organizations as well. His last gig was a CPO with SolarZero, and I think Anthony will take over from here.
All right.
Thank you, Anthony.
You've stolen half of my first slide. So. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. Really appreciate it. Thank you to the people online. I see there's a few familiar names popping up in the chat. Hi, Rebecca. We've got a few people, possibly somebody else from Brisbane as well, joining us. But thank you to all for joining us in person. I think I see at least one familiar face here, and I think I heard somebody mention Adam Darby before over there. Yep. So ex-colleague of Adam's from back in my Fisher and Paykel days. So thank you so much for coming out. So yeah, as Bernard said, I'm currently a product advisor and coach. Most recently, I was chief product officer at Solar Zero. I've been coaching product teams before that, done product management, a lot of B2B, B2E organizations, recently more in the B2C kind of space. I'm also the organizer for Product Tank Auckland. So like this, only we have usually about 80 people in the room. Too much bigger community up there, and we're doing a lot of work with Bardeth about how we can support the community sort of in this mid-North Island kind of area, because my other role is that I'm chair of an organization called Product Aotearoa. So Product Aotearoa is an organization that we've set up to join the product communities from across New Zealand, and also trying to help. One of our missions is to try and help product people who are working in the regions as well, because we know we get a lot of people, even in Auckland, your sole product person in a company, they've got nobody around them to support them, but at least they can come out and there's, fairly vibrant community to help support. Product person who's like the sole product person working for an organization in Napier, they don't have that support around them. And so we're looking as Product Aotearoa about how we can help to support and grow the communities, both in the main centres, but also outside the main centres as well. We also have a conference coming up, and I'll talk about that at the end. Right, since we only have a few people here, I'm really curious to know what everyone's role. For those online, I'll repeat them, and just let me know your role and what organisation you're from. And apologies, I would have got this from you guys in the networking, but we were so fast, it was so much time even to set up the live stream, I didn't have time to do that. So I'll start from you. So.
My name is Meryl. I work for Fergus Software in a customer success role, so onboarding implementation.
Cool, so customer success in Fergus.
James, I'm engineering manager at Fergus.
Yeah, James, engineering at Fergus. So I'm repeating it, by the way, so people online can hear, so in case that sounds weird.
Isaac, service delivery manager for Tauranga City Council.
Okay, SDM at Tauranga Council.
Sharma, I work as solution architect for a consulting.
Cool, solution architect.
Danny, work at Alco Bikes as design director, but I'm not even sure what that means.
Okay, so design director at Abco.
Dave, I'm a co-founder of BitApp,
Okay, so co-founder, cool.
Will, product manager at Robotics Plus.
Oh, Robotics Plus. Cool, 2 product managers.
Business analyst at Robotics Council.
Okay, business analyst from Rotorua.
Work here at Tauranga City Council. Lindsay, I'm a product manager.
So product manager from Tauranga City Council.
Manager at Tauranga City Council.
Another product manager at Tauranga City Council.
Hey, Tim, called myself solutions advisor now. I work for Datacom SaaS business. Used to be product manager.
Oh, yeah, so ex-product manager from Datacom, so now solutions architect. The same really. So that's my wife, Susan. She's a lawyer. She's listening in and helping out, and thank you for putting up with me and coming down.
Yeah, hello. I'm Omi Verma. I'm Tauranga City Council.
Cool. Cool. So we've got a mix of kind of a bit of sort of engineering, bit of product around the room, founders, sort of a few things in between. Cool. Oh, Scott over the back. And head of delivery City Council. Cool. We've got a good diverse sort of audience. Right. Okay. So just to kind of level set, I'm going to talk just to set a bit of context here. I'm going to be focusing a wee bit on sort of doing product in kind of non-traditional product organizations, because that was kind of requested by Bardeth, and I'm aware we've got quite a few people here from the City Council, but this is relevant to other organizations as well, where, you're more a software type organization like Fergus. So when we define what a product is, I asked ChatGPT, because that's the cool thing to do, and ChatGPT told me products are physical goods, services, or digital goods. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now, I've worked in a bunch of different companies. I've worked for companies where the product was a software platform. That's a Xero screenshot. As I was saying earlier, back in my Fisher and Paykel days, that was the product, a fridge. Or washing machine, which is what Adam worked on. Most recently at Solar Zero, where our product's kind of a mix. We've got like solar panels, and we've got inverters and batteries, and we've got a digital platform as well. Done some work with Foodstuffs. You know, their product ultimately is grocery, but I was working very closely with their technology team. Been talking to a few construction companies, and there's you know, companies like Fergus who work in that construction space. So there's all sorts of different definitions of product around. So these are the things, but are we kind of like missing something here? So none of those things actually matter unless there are humans involved. These people all have got things that they need to do, jobs that they need to accomplish, stuff that they're going to do. The product is the thing that just merely helps them accomplish that job. Like the product is not a thing in and of itself, or what we were defining there as the bit of software or the bit of hardware. That's not a thing in and of itself. It's the thing that it actually accomplishes for the customer. You know, is that thing that, you know, nobody wants a hole. You know, nobody wants a drill. What they actually want is a hole. That, you know, that kind of analogy. And this was where I sort of came to this, was when I was working with Foodstuffs, and they so Foodstuffs have a very large technology team, about 300 odd people, and they have like product managers that are in their technology team, the product owners as well. But in the rest of the business, they've got like category managers and product managers for like produce and fresh fruit and all those different things as well. And so they said to me, it's like, well, what's our product here? We've got these different sort of product people, but what's our actual product? And that kind of led me to thinking, well, actually, the customers experience all these things that substantiate that journey as part of the customer journey that they go through. So, you know, so typical shopping journey, they start off an order on the phone, and then, you know, perhaps they go to the supermarket to buy it, and so they've got like a shopping list in there that they're going through, and then they go to the checkout and interact with the checkout, or perhaps that's ordered and a person brings that stuff. Care about the app or the list or the stuff on the shelves or the POS or the delivery service. What they care is about getting groceries that they can put into their fridge. Like, that's actually the thing that they're trying to achieve. They're trying to feed their family, and to do that they have to go through a customer journey. And that kind of led me to the conclusion that the customer experience is actually the product. And this gives you like this general model that you can use to apply to, say, a SaaS company like Fergus, where, you know, there's a journey there and you have customers, you have users of that journey, through to somewhere like Council, where you've got a service that you're giving to people. But at the end of the day, you've got people on the other end of that who are deriving value from it in some way. And it might be made up of apps, or it might be made up of, so SolarZero, it's process and practice stuff, installation crews putting solar panels on a roof. They're all part of that product. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. What does that kind of mean? So how does this play out in the real world? So let's say we need to make a change. We need to add some new functionality into the product. So say we're doing something that's at the top end of a grocery journey. We're adding a new feature into the app. Perhaps maybe say something around discounts. But that's going to potentially touch a whole bunch of different things. So if we say adding a discount feature, because when we run that discount, suddenly a whole lot of people are going to come in, and we're going to need a whole lot more product, and, you know, that's going to be part of that feature change as well. So there's a whole lot of different people, a whole lot of different humans and areas of the business that need to be involved in that particular change. So we've all read the Marty Kagan stuff, we've all read Empowered, and you have this notion of an agile product team, this amazing product manager leading their product off to success, and they're all happy and joyous and standing around rooms full of whiteboards and post-its, virtual or otherwise. And that's right. But if we zoom out in any typical organization, what we actually see is that often that notion of a product team kind of exists over in the tech and digital kind of space. And we have these other functions, silos, call them what you will, that aren't in this area. And so this is a very typical kind of structure. And what I see a lot of is that this area is busy agiling and producting and whatnot. But these areas, maybe these areas are doing, you know, because we're starting to see agile being adopted in marketing and HR and sales and things like that. But it's often being adopted in a silo. And so we have this kind of notion of sort of individual departments all kind of like doing their own thing. But as we talked about before, to get the outcome for a customer, everyone actually has to kind of come together. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. And so you ask any organization, like, how do we do stuff around here? Like, if you're a new joiner in an organization, how do we do stuff around here? And somebody will probably give you a copy of the org chart and go, right, here are the different leaders, here are the different functions, the different individuals. every single organization I have ever worked for, the how do we do stuff around here is often in this informal grouping of people who cut across different silos. Even in companies where the tech digital part of the organization is comparatively large. So take a Xero, for example, there's still areas like marketing and sales and areas outside of that are also involved in the product. And I mean, this is kind of how I got my start in product, was that I sort of started with, okay, I'm trying to get something done for a customer. Like at that point, I was a software engineer. I'm trying to get this thing done for a customer. Actually, you know what? I need to go and crash heads from some of our supply chain people. When I was working in an EFTPOS company, I needed to grab some people from our stores area. I needed to grab some people from our manufacturing area and the hardware guys and people that worked in the workshop so I could create some prototypes. And I needed the software engineers out of the technology side of the business as well. But that was not a first-class sort of structure in the organization. This is just me not caring about the hierarchy, not caring about, it's all like somebody else's manager. This is just me going, hey guys, we've just got something to do. Let's get shit done. Let's just actually bring this group of people together informally to try and get shit done, because that's ultimately what matters, right? Like, we're trying to get the thing done for the customer. The fact that there's a bit of software and a bit of supply chain and a bit of sales and a bit of this and a bit of that, customer does not care about your internal structure at all. They just want to get stuff done. They just want to buy something or receive a service or receive some kind of outcome. And in fact, sometimes you can often, like, once you see this pattern as a customer, sometimes you can even see like the lines inside an organization by virtue of how they deliver their product. Like, if it's a two-stage, sort of 2 steps you need to do to get something, I will put money on the fact there's 2 silos that are sitting behind that inside the organization. If anyone knows, anyone know Conway's Law? Your hand up if you heard Conway's Law. No? Ooh, surprising. Okay. So Conway's Law sort of, it gets misinterpreted, but it very loosely says that the structure of a product often reflects the internal structure of the organization. And it's around architecture. I'm massively paraphrasing. That's not exactly what it says, but it essentially says that the way that your organization is built often manifests itself in the product or the service that you actually deliver. And that kind of sucks, right? Because we're actually just trying to get something done for a customer. And again, like I said, the customer does not actually care in the slightest that those divisions inside. And most people who get their start in product are often the ones, I personally came from an engineering background. I was the one going, look, I don't actually care about those silos. I've just got a problem that I need to solve. I'm going to crash people's heads together. Maybe I might go and beg for forgiveness from a manager because I need somebody's time and I need this person's time and I need a bit of resource from like the hardware side of things. But I'll beg for forgiveness because ultimately, like, we've got this customer outcome. And anybody who steps in my way, I'm going to say, yeah, but do you not care about the customer? I don't care about your structure. I don't care about your process. I'm just trying to get this thing done. If you don't care, cool, fine, whatever. I pissed off a few people that way. I've number of pissed off project managers in Auckland who don't like me. But that was how, again, that was how I got my start in product, because it's like I'm the one who cares about the customer side of things. This is where things get really interesting. Often these areas have their own backlogs as well. So to get that one thing done, so that example of we're trying to do something at the top end of a grocery customer journey, it might be at the top of the tech or digital backlog, but the supply chain department, they've got a few other things to do first. The marketing area, it's like way back. Another area it's kind of close to, that's nearly, that's the next thing they might get onto, and that other area it's sort of theirs. But ultimately, all of that stuff actually has to come together to get the customer outcome. And again, I see this over and over and over again in organizations, that there's not this notion of a single customer outcome focused backlog. There's this, I'm in this silo and I've got this backlog. And then what happens is so tech and digital, right, we're done, yay, awesome, we delivered the thing. And department A is going, oh yeah, no, but it's a few weeks away. B's like, oh yeah, we're nearly there. Department C, hey, we're kind of busy. I think I called them the marketing department. We're kind of busy. Like, can you come back to us in a couple of weeks' time? Department D, well, hang on, I can't even remember what that thing was. Like, what were you talking about? And meanwhile, tech and digital go, yeah, we're done. And they've moved to the next thing. And so eventually, the one that was furthest behind goes, yeah, we're done too. And you go back to all the other departments. They're like, oh, can you? What was that thing that I can't actually remember. Oh, you're ready to ship it now? Oh, hang on. Department D, like, oh, We did it a while ago. I don't know if we still actually have that thing around, that bit of marketing collateral. It might, I think we forgot it. I think it might have got overwritten, don't know. And Tech and Digital were the first ones. They're like, hey, that was ages ago. We've moved on to like 3 or 4 different things in the meantime. And then this is what happens. So 2 possible things that happen next. Either somebody in the organization goes, guys, this is really, really, really important for the customer. And this massive swirl starts up of, so tech have to get pulled back onto the thing that they had delivered that they were code complete on a while ago. And now we actually have to get into the hands of the customer. Everybody gets pulled into this massive swirl of noise and chaos. You guys, anyone in the room experienced this chaos before? Yep. Or the other outcome, and this is worse, is that actually people go, well, that was so long ago, it's not important. We thought this was really important for the customer, but you know what, actually, no, it's not as important as we thought. Or one of the areas will go, look, we just really don't care about that thing anymore. And all of that work, all of that cross-functional effort that went on gets put on the shelf, doesn't get used, or maybe gets used to a smaller amount than it was intended to, because it didn't come together as one outcome for the customer. And what results is the money pit. So one of the unfortunate things is that once you see this pattern in an organization, you can't unsee it. It's like the Sixth Sense or whatever. I see dead people. Like I see waste. I see massive amounts of money being poured down the drain. A certain organization that I will not name, when I worked through this assessment with them, my assessment, and I was told this was a conservative assessment, is that around about 50% of their technology spend gets wasted as a result of this kind of effect, because things either die, so all this work happens, they're waiting on some other area, or they get delivered, but because of a lack of coordination, they don't have the impact on the customer that everybody thought it was going to. And that's an organization that's spending double-digit millions on technology. So that's double-digit millions of waste. You think somebody would care about that? And the really fascinating thing is I'd go around and sort of introduce this concept to everyone, and they go, yeah, totally, yeah, that's exactly right. But you're wasting like $10 million a year, what the hell? Anyway, so how do we fix this? I wouldn't be here ranting if I didn't think that there was a way through this. So one way I've seen this dealt with is racing in on their horses. We need a PMO. We need to coordinate everything. What the problem here is coordination. We need better coordination in the organization. And that's often where SAFE comes in as well, that usually what the company realizes that they're wasting double-digit millions of dollars, think that's a bad idea. Maybe we should do something about it. Maybe there's a safe answer to that problem. Of course, again, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that there was a better way. So value, return on investment. So taking that thing with the outcome that we're trying to generate for a customer, there are different ways to quantify the value of something. So for an organization like Fergus or say Solver Zero, often it's revenue. You're trying to do something that's going to add revenue. For an organization like Tauranga City Council, you're generally trying to reduce cost or avoid cost. You usually have a fixed budget. What you're trying to do is getting the maximum amount of impact out of that budget for the organization. This all comes from blackswanfarming.com, Josh Arnold. Anyone heard of cost of delay? Notion of cost of delay. I was essentially talking a little bit there about concepts around cost of delay. Josh is a Kiwi. He's up in Auckland, joins our community every now and then. Good guy. His website's well worth looking at. So this slide I've stolen from him because it allows you to kind of categorize those different sorts of value, irrespective of the type of organization that you're working through. Like I've worked for multiple different natures of organizations, and you can always find a way to categorize that. Why am I talking about value when we're just talking about waste? Well, if you start to talk about the outcome that we're looking for, if we don't, if you as a product manager can't see, or as a product adjacent kind of role, can't see the value, then you're not going to be able to articulate waste to your organization. So it's important to be able to figure out, okay, of the thing that we're trying to achieve, which of these buckets does it fit into? And what's your kind of thumbsuck of what the quantity of that is? It might be, City Council, it's a difficult one to quantify. We can have some conversations about that later, but it might just be, okay, it's the most effective use of a spend. So how do we, and therefore if we don't do that, it's an ineffective result of doing that. Because value and that waste conversation is what gets you out of your silo. And this is, again, the pattern I've seen in organizations where product is often concentrated in tech and digital, or as a product owner. If you're just thinking inside your own silo, it's really hard to have that cross-organization conversation that you need to start having to go, hey, wouldn't it be so much better if we were working in a more coordinated, directed, outcome-focused kind of fashion? You're a lot more likely to win that discussion. There aren't that many CIOs, CEOs in the world who will say, if you come to them and go, look, by the way, I reckon we're wasting $1 million a year here, who won't at least listen to you. Yeah, they might not do anything about it, but you can at least open the conversation. But if you just go to them, oh, we need better coordination, they'll go, well, that's your problem. Why are you bringing that problem to me? What you're talking about here is something that's needs to existentially change the structure of the organization. The only way to start that conversation is through money, is by having that money conversation. And one of the reasons I mentioned a lot of product people in New Zealand, so this is sort of the overall scope of the role of a product manager. So globally, kind of, you read like any of Marty Kagan's books, you'll sort of see these things popping up, everything from like strategy, pricing, value, discovery, delivery, build, go-to-market, optimization, data analysis, roadmaps, positioning. Often, particularly the product owner role, you get stuck in here, you get stuck in this discovery and delivery sort of part of the world. And that means it's really hard to have that overall value conversation, because you just ship the next thing, ship the next thing, ship the next thing, ship the next thing. You have to find ways to try and get involved in these other conversations. It's no good sitting there going, woe is me, I'm not getting involved in commercial conversations about value-based conversations. The way to get into those conversations is to actually come with an idea. Actually go, look, hey, I'm seeing this value, I'm seeing this waste, I'm seeing that money pit. Here's some ideas, here's some ways that I think we could do about it, or even just making it visible. Like, okay, so funny thing again, this organization that will remain nameless, they set up this room where they tracked the progress of all these cross-functional projects as they sort of went around. There was sort of like 4 walls of the, and the end wall was the value realization section. And I was on contract with them for 6 months. That value realization section stayed empty the entire time that I was there. It's because nobody was actually quantifying. There wasn't, A, things weren't moving fast enough, but B, nobody was actually doing that value quantification. So they weren't able to have that conversation across the organization about, hey, we've got all this waste going on. Interestingly, they had 2 different types of product people as well. So they had some people who had come up through the organization. They'd been working in those different departments, found themselves in the technology area. They were actually really good at trying to kick off those cross-organizational conversations, because they'd already built trust in those different areas. Like, to highlight this waste, you sometimes need a bit of trust in those different areas. But they also had some people that had come directly into digital as well, and they weren't as good as other people as having that conversation, because they hadn't built up that trust across the different silos yet. So, as a product person, getting engaged with different areas of the business, it might be in a company like Fergus, it might be like product marketing, and council. It's a plethora of different departments. I can't even begin to imagine how many there will be. How do you build that trust? How do you build that engagement across the different areas of the business that you're engaging with? And the reason for that is that, you're trying to establish this, when everything that's going through, you're trying to make sure that at least in your head, you've got an idea of what the overall return on investment is. When we're trying to do something that crosses across a whole bunch of silos, what's the overall outcome that we're trying to achieve? It's not just an iteration of the mobile app. It's not just an iteration of a bit of supply chain work. It's that overall impact on the customer. Have you, as a product person, actually got it in your head? Can you quantify what that overall value is? And if you can't, who can you talk to? Who can you go and ask that question to try and find that out? Because you need to try and define, and sorry, this is on the cost side as well. So we've talked a bit about the value side, the cost side. I stole this slide from Melissa Firth. Melissa and I did a presentation on commercial acumen for product managers. If you're interested in ways to build commercial acumen, that's on YouTube. But she talked about the notion of the believable thumbs. It can be hard to quantify an exact value or an exact cost, but a group of people working together, sort of 6 to 9 people working sort of tech or tech adjacent kind of people, cost about $1 million a year, or around about 100K a month. Or if you work in 2-week sprints, 50K a sprint. you've spent that. So say this thing is like 3 sprints worth of work. We're in the hole for 150K on that. Are we generating enough value to dig ourselves out of that 150K hole? If not, is that a problem? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes companies make a loss on things deliberately. Organizations make a loss, but sometimes that is actually important. And so, of all that effort, of all that work that the teams that you're working on are creating as an input, are we actually getting that kind of output out of it? Can you at least convince yourself that, organizations oddly are not often set up to quantify this stuff? Can you at least tell a compelling story to yourself? If you can't, who can you talk to in the organization to try and find that out? Because what this all builds towards is an ownership mindset. This notion of, as a product person, you're part of the business and the organization first, and your function or your silo second. Product is a business function. It's historically come from part of the general business rather than technology. And that's, people talk about an ownership mindset. That's kind of what they mean, is that, are you looking at the big picture first? I see a lot of product people complaining that, the company's wasting so much money. So cool, but what have you done personally about that? Have you actually been able to bring together that return, that investment sort of side of the picture, and start to have conversations with people? Have you learned how to engage outside of your own silo so that you've got that you can display that kind of ownership mindset? Because often as a product person, you're seeing stuff that other people aren't. Another trick in all of this is something that we did at SolarZero. So I had basically pulled product management. So product management previously existed in the technology team. I pulled it out, made it its own thing, its own department, which I then ran as chief product officer. And I engaged a couple of really senior product people that I knew, really lucky to get them on board. And one of them in particular, he really came into his own sort of earlier this year, where he'd been working with some new delivery stuff, some new product features and functions that we delivered late last year. Through the Christmas period, he had a bit of time just in early January to noodle on a pile of data. And so we went looking at some of the sales data that we were seeing for our Solar subscription product and started to dive into it. He was segmenting it out and slicing and dicing it. And he was sitting with the founder and he took that stuff to the CEO. And suddenly our CEO got really engaged in that conversation. And it was really interesting how his perception of the product managers and the organization just flipped in that over the course of that week, because this guy was bringing them really interesting data that they didn't know about. They actually, because they hadn't had the time to noodle on it, they didn't have somebody who was sort of taking the point of view that this particular product manager was. That it was something like, oh, actually, we need to do that. And now, his role is really flying. He really has the CEO's ear. And then the other product managers kind of picked up on that as well. And so they're really able to have that cross-organization conversation where it was doing okay before, but it was really just that bringing that bit of data, bringing that really interesting insight to the CEO and founder just completely changed their perception of them. It's really, really fascinating. The last bit I just wanted to touch on is also the go-to-market piece. So when all those sort of uncoordinated things are happening, people often forget that there is actually, so it's thinking of a typical factory kind of mindset, we can build all these widgets and whatnot, but until we can actually get them in the hands of our customer, it doesn't actually matter. And again, this comes down to this ownership sort of mindset, because, next slide, we need to make the outcomes real for our customers. And what does that actually look like? So once you've, established what that return on investment is, what's the outcome, what's the impact that we're trying to have on customers, how will those customers become aware of it? Can they actually get the thing? What else are those customers doing when they're using that thing? This is particularly important in a services kind of area, is that it's easy to think about the customer as just caring about your thing. But there's a whole heap of other stuff going on in their life at that point in time. So, for example, again, using an example from SolarZero, we're trying to optimize how when we outbound call to a customer, we want to have a conversation with them. And I was doing a bunch of research around the fact, listening in calls, and we're seeing a lot of calls that were getting abandoned, a lot of calls that we're not completing as they should. And then when I listened to a few calls, it sort of hit me in the face. Oh, we're calling people when they're driving. We're calling people when they're in the doctor's surgery. They're not ready to have a conversation about solar at that time. So that was okay, we have a go-to-market problem there. How do we get past that? How do we engage our customers when they're actually ready to engage? Of course, will people actually use the thing? It's, you can get very caught up in the build and then deliver it and go, actually, nobody can use the thing. And then the other part of the key part of go-to-market is what other areas of the organization are impacted. So what are we going to have an impact in product delivery, where the product manager very early on owns what are all the different areas? Because I said, owning that silo, owning that overall value picture, if you know what all the impact is, you're ready to have that conversation. I often see companies approaching, and particularly in government departments, approaching this stuff as a project, just as a simple, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, done. But the product manager often brings a different mindset to that, which is, what's the outcome that we're trying to achieve for the customer, and then work backwards from there, as opposed to a set of steps. So does all those set of steps actually build towards the outcome that we're trying to get for that customer? And once they've actually got the thing, will it actually work for them? So what does good look like? Good looks like that all the people receiving your thing actually get it in a single coherent fashion, and not exposed to the slices in your organization. They get value, and then as a company, you're not pouring waste on the ground. So kind of what I'm hinting at with all of this is, I talked earlier on about this notion of this informal kind of grouping of people who are the ones who are actually doing the overall product delivery. They're the ones who are actually creating impact in the customer journey. Well, what if we actually took that whole thing, tilted it 90 degrees, and said, well, let's actually have a cross-functional squad of people. So this is the change I actually made at SolarZero. It's one of the reasons I went on board as CPO, was to take people from marketing, from sales, from our support areas and our training and technology as well, and our hardware engineering side of things, and get them working as a cross-functional squad of people, and making that a first-class structure inside the organization. The functions department still existed, but we actually sort of created these two fully cross-functional squads. I was able to do that in SolarZero because I had a mandate from the exec team to do it. In a large organization, it is pretty tough. So, this kind of represents the ideal sort of nirvana state for what I've been talking about for this whole presentation. This is more often than not the reality of how you actually need to make it work. And that's okay. Like, to transform a large organization, a lot of the concepts I was talking to them about 4 years ago, they're only starting to adopt now. It's a slow-moving ship. You're not going to get to this perfect sort of value stream-oriented view of the world immediately. It is known as value streams. It's not something that I've invented. There are a few sort of organizations in New Zealand who are sort of promoting this notion of value stream transformation. It's kind of probably what we'll start to see. Everyone's kind of over agile transformations. Value stream of transformations, I think, is what we're going to start seeing more and more of. Cool. Last couple of things. Pick your nail. This value stream cross-functional way of working doesn't apply to everything. If it's just a marketing team delivering a marketing campaign, they don't need help from elsewhere in the organization. That's just something that they can do within their department. It's only those really big sort of cross-functional kind of deliveries that the structure and what I've been talking about applies to. But, and this has caught me out before, sometimes you go, okay, well, this is just internal to that department. This marketing thing needs to be done by the marketing team. Hang on a sec. They need some tech help. Oh, and that's going to affect sales as well. Oh, actually, this is a cross-functional piece of work. And so you have to be ready to, as something progresses through, to be able to go, well, actually, we do need to get this cross-functional group of people working together around it. Because you need to pick your battles. You're not going to win every single battle when you're trying to make your organization better, make it work more effectively, be advocating for those customer outcomes. You're not going to win every battle. This might be a slow thing. Even if you can just get one initiative to work this way, to show working, then maybe you can get some wins on the board. Because it's, as a product person, own it or be owned by it. Like, if you're not owning that overall outcome, you will get owned by your organization, by the different silos in your organization. If you're not the one driving towards that customer, the overall customer thing, somebody else will be, and you'll get owned by the organization. A lot of people complaining, oh, we keep on doing all these like really stupid things. I'm like, okay, you're getting owned by your organization. You need to find a way to own it. It's not easy. Some execs, some leadership teams are just completely resistant. They will plow on anyway. Life's too short. But yeah, you do have to find ways to try and own it. Couple of resources. Project to Product is a really good one that talks about this value stream way of working. It actually uses one of the examples they cite as BMW of all companies. BMW for their newer iCars, the electric cars, actually have this kind of value stream thing set up, even in like physical manifestation in their factories. Their old factories are very, sort of linear across the production line. The iCars are actually produced in a more cross-functional kind of way. They more come together as well. Don't know what will happen as they scale the manufacturing of those. But yeah, some really interesting stuff talked about there. It's a bit of a cliche to cite Marty Kagan's inspired, but to me, it's still the book that says, this is what product looks like end to end. How do we find ways to actually make that work in our realities? Promise I'll talk about the conference. So Product Aotearoa, if you want to join in with people like me and like other people across New Zealand at this conference, it's going to be in Wellington this year. So 14th to 15th of November, 14th will be workshops, 15th will be the main conference. We're going to have a whole bunch of amazing speakers at that. Early bird tickets are now available. I think the early bird pricing finishes on end of next week, I think. So if you're interested in those early bird prices, get in quick. That QR code will take you to the page, which I'll leave up on the question slide. If you want to have more conversations about this, I'll hopefully have some chats with you all afterwards. But do connect with me on LinkedIn. I promise it's not a rickroll. And that one is for the ticketing for the Product Aotearoa conference. Cool. Thank you, everyone. Questions? By the way, if you're online, please put your questions into the YouTube chat. Questions, thoughts?
The cross-functional teams, we've kind of done something a little bit like that in our implementations. My space where we actually get stakeholders.
Sorry, just for the benefit of the people online.
Yeah, so just thinking about the cross-functional thing, we in our implementations often have our stakeholders, our vendors all working together. They all come to daily stand-ups, and we, particularly when there's decisions to be made, problems arise. You can discuss those. When we're in UAT, we have daily triage for that, and we get all of the key people involved, and yeah, those conversations where you can quickly come to a resolution gold. Yeah.
Yeah, but interesting you mentioned that, because the concept kind of talks a little bit to that swirl. The swirl stage of like it has to actually work together to get that thing for the customer, and that happens a lot at the end. One of my musings that sort of led me to kind of thinking more about this value stream stuff is production incidents. So I've been involved with very large SaaS platforms. When something goes down, very clear outcome that you're looking for. You know what good looks like. The people engaged in fixing it are the ones who can help, and they will come from anywhere in the business, wherever you need them. When everything's down, you've got carte blanche to grab whoever you need to solve a problem. The level of collaboration is huge because everyone's got this very clear focus of what it is that they're trying to achieve, and then we know what good looks like. And we fix it and then we move on. And that's not to say that everything should be a crisis. Like that doesn't mean that the crisis way of working. But what can we kind of take from that? Well, okay, we have really clear focus. We have all the people that we need to actually get that thing done, working, dedicated to it, and it's relatively time bound that we get it done and then we move on. So that kind of is what sort of triggered me onto thinking about this value stream way of working. It's like, well, if we can work, what you're saying is, I hear that a lot. It's like, I really enjoyed working in that highly cross-functional way. Like, well, why can't we actually make that a first-class operating model for our organization?
And it takes your stakeholders out of the, why have you delivered this crap solution? and they're actually involved in the, oh, this doesn't quite work. They can feel part of resolving the problem.
They feel like the customer. They feel the pain of the customer
exactly.
at that point. Yeah. Because it is a thing, because it really brings the stakeholders from people can be very ivory tower of like, well, of course it should be perfect. And then when they're actually in that grouping, they see the trade-offs from the different areas. Again, that was one of the reasons that I brought in that cross-functional way of working at Solar Zero, is because what we a little bit of like marketing not really understanding the challenges that tech had, and tech not really understanding the challenges that sales had. But when we actually bring people together in the same room, physically or virtually, it's hard to sort of throw other departments under the bus when you have to actually look them in the eye. And so people become much more collaborative. You get a much better way of working. But as you say, it's happened at one particular point. So why can't we
Yeah, with our implementations, we're trying to get all of those people involved at the start of the journey, and it makes the end point much more enjoyable. You can predict what it's going to look like before you get there.
Yeah, and you as a product person, that then gives you the big picture view, because you can see across all those different areas much more easily. So. Thanks. Jeez.
Feels like the concept of ownership is cultural. Are there any practical methods to create that?
Oh, sorry, repeat it for that. Thank you. Sorry.
I don't know if I can repeat stuff like that only comes once.
The question was about culture and ownership.
The ownership, so value streams and stuff, and getting together in a cross-functional team, you kind of already need a sense that people are buying in. Dealing with engineers, that isn't always the case. Are there any practical methods to kind of, if the culture isn't there, how do you create that sense of ownership?
Very good question. Often I find organizations have this notion of, back in the startup days, I worked for Orion Health, and I heard that a lot. Back in our startup days, things were so much better. Things worked so well. And problems and whatnot, because back in our startup days, everything was great, everything was amazing. And it was because in that startup environment, again, very clear goal. Often in startup mode, it's existential. If you don't get it right for the customer, you get it wrong, you don't get money, you die. That tends to sharpen the mind of people, particularly engineers. It's like, okay, if I don't get this right, I don't compromise the stuff that normally I would dig my heels in, I'm not going to get paid tomorrow. There's actually going to be no money. And so I was thinking about, okay, well, how do we keep that culture going at scale? How do we preserve that notion of importance, of urgency, of customer focus, but when we're a large organization? And that core thing is that it's that existential customer focus that, often in a large organization, you can get it wrong for a customer a few times, you don't die, but you'll die eventually if you keep on getting it wrong. The horizon's there, it's just a ways off. It's how do you help your people understand that actually it is important? How do you make the numbers visible to them? That waste piece is important. How do you actually make that visible to an engineer? Just go, look, if we don't do this, we're foregoing this dollar value thing. Or get the engineer directly involved with the customer. How do we actually, this is the customer problem that we're trying to actually deal with. It's moving people to that problem space and getting them really deeply engaged in it. However, engineers are engineers, and there are some people that are really resistant to this. Interestingly, we're going to have a meetup, I think sometime in October, with the Auckland Software Leaders Group, and I'm talking to them. They sort of come to me with a bit of proposal, and one of the topics they want to talk to is the hard conversations that you need to. I have come across some engineers who are just resistant to this way of working, that really customer focused. They just want to build the thing. Tell me what to build and let me do it, and I'll come back to you when I'm done kind of mindset. Not this, actually, I want to engage and understand the problem. Sometimes you need to have some really hard conversations with your engineering leadership about whether or not that attitude, that mindset is what you want in your business. If you're prepared to tolerate that, then you have to tolerate the problems that come with it. People building stuff that's not going to generate the right outcome, not engaging with the customer, not making money. How much are you prepared as a leadership team to actually put up with that? Can you actually have that hard conversation? So as I said, we've got a meetup coming up, which is going to explore that topic a bit more. But yeah, I've dealt with, I've been that engineer myself. I come from an engineering background. I've been like, oh, why do I need to care about the customer? And then I went, actually, I don't want to work on pointless stuff. The thing that did it personally for me is that I want to make sure that the thing I'm doing actually gets used. I work on a few projects that have got abandoned. The stuff actually never ended up in the hands of the customer. And I'm like, I don't actually want to do that. I actually want to work on stuff that actually adds value to this business. One of the other ways, and this is going to sound a wee bit negative, is that right now with the change, with what's happening in our industry and the technology industry, some of the stuff is actually existential. Like if people aren't directly aware of how they have an impact on a customer, directly aware of the level of waste that's being generated in the organization, like you're going to get made redundant. Like you're just going to get kicked out. So, you know, there is that existentiality to it as well. And so one of the interesting things I talked about, that sort of transformation type of thing, I have rarely seen organizations actually properly transform unless their backs were against the wall. Like unless there was like an existential, if we don't do this, we're going to die kind of mindset. And so it's like, how do you have that conversation before it becomes existential? Is it even possible? I'm not actually sure. So it's a very roundabout sort of answer to your question, but fundamentally what I'm getting at is it's like you have the people doing the work have to feel the pain of the customer and understand the business, and you just have to find ways to communicate that. And they have to care about it as well. Like I said, if they don't, that's a conversation you have to have as a leadership teams.
I think like when
Sorry, just grab the mic.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like that topic of ownership, and that's also what I say. Like what I like more about being a product manager versus like currently a business analyst. And yeah, you talked about ownership within the team, and you know when you take engineers on site as well, when you see the problems sometimes, or when you get customers in and they can really interact with them, I feel that helps sometimes. But I also noticed that you seem to have like a real struggle with it, that sometimes you can quantify the loss an organization is making, but still you feel that they're not taking action towards it and they're being owned, as you mention it. And yeah, that's my biggest pain point as well. At one point, I suggested someone to read the book Extreme Ownership from ex-Navy SEAL, but I'm not sure if that went well. But yeah, do you have any more thoughts around that? You know, from the other side, not the team, but yeah, the wider organization or the leadership.
Just like flat marks on my forehead. It's from like banging it against the wall when you deal with this. You got to get good at the people focus. I wouldn't say manipulation because that sounds evil, but you know, how do you deploy those voodoo skills to try and convince people? You know, often when you're working with an exec team on this stuff, it's convincing them that they should care about this. You know, the one organization I was working with where they had that very large amount of waste, I just didn't have a good route to their leadership team. I was being abstracted through because I was a contractor as well. I just didn't have a good route, and you know, my lesson learned is that actually I should have built that route earlier on, that I wasn't having the conversations at the level that I needed it to. It was getting abstracted through someone else. I needed to have actually been more actively finding ways around that person. So it's using your organizational voodoo, your sort of conversational persuasion voodoo, and learn that stuff and get good at it. One key thing that I've found useful is storytelling, is getting really good at storytelling. How do you tell these stories? The waste examples, one organization that I was working with, they have like a story in their organization of something that went really badly. And every time somebody goes, oh no, we're just going to skip discovery, we're just going to plow ahead with this thing, that story gets brought out. And they're like, oh yeah, remember when we did that thing and it went really badly? Let's not do that. And it's become like it's become sort of like folklore inside that organization. And it's a story that's just, created its own sort of momentum. And so it's been able to construct those stories that will stick. And so you're getting good at storytelling, at learning the human behavior piece of communication. If anyone's interested, I have a storytelling workshop that I'm happy to do as well, where I actually talk through about how people communicate, how you land messages with people. It's funny, when I did the research for it, I'm like, oh my God, this is stuff I wish I knew like 15 years ago. I would have been so much better at communicating with people. My one conclusion from building that stuff, communication's hard. People are actually naturally predisposed to resisting information that to them. You can have the most logical argument in your head, like, we're wasting $10 million. But unless you can effectively communicate it, unless the person on the other side responds to it, it's been out. So it's trying to figure out ways to actually communicate that stuff. And as like I said, probably if not anything else, learn storytelling.
Okay, yeah, when I saw that link as well from the Black Swan, I thought about the Black Swan group from Chris Voss. He has the book about Never Split the Difference, which is essentially like negotiation and storytelling and all that. And yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Good advice. Storytelling and finding the right pathway.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, sorry, just one more thing. Finding the language too. Like I talked a lot about the commercial language, that financial language. Learning how to talk that with your exec team can really help too. Just the CPO role is my first exec role, and that was really eye-opening to me about learning to reframe what I'm used to talking about in like product land into the language of our CFO, of the language of our CMO, our head of sales, our COO, like learning how to take that stuff and actually translate it into the different business areas language was something that I had to learn it very fast, but it was very effective. Like I found being able to communicate with those people effectively and forgetting all of, the language that I would use and actually using their language made a really big difference. The language of money is pretty much universal across most executive teams. If you can find a way to make it, turn it into a money conversation, that's a good starting point, as unfortunate as that sounds.
So I've actually got someone online who's asking me questions because he can't comment because he can't log in.
Oh,
so
whoops.
That's all right. So his question was about waste actually, and so how does a product owner go about minimizing waste when a customer just needs to deliver and worried about what that waste actually is? And so in our context, you've got a team that's trying to deliver an outcome at all costs. They don't really care about the waste, even though it's costing. And of course, the way our budgets are set, they don't actually feel the pain of the cost. The digital team do.
Yeah.
So yeah, interested in your thoughts.
I remember vividly sitting in a talk by everyone's heard Gojko Ajic. He's a European guy, quite a big speaker on sort of the agile kind of circuit, He said something in this presentation that I've carried with me since then. So it's going back like 10 years probably. He said, sometimes your job is to help other people spend money. And you sometimes have to become zen with that. And it comes back to what I was talking about picking your battles. You're not going to win every battle. It might seem like the craziest thing in the world, but if it's what's your small win? What's the smallest way that you could articulate? Maybe next time we could optimize this or do it a bit better. It's pick the battles. There's sometimes it's actually, sorry, another way to explain that. Like if you're trying to get to market and the only thing that matters is getting to market, like to hit a deadline, compliance often falls into this bucket, and you're just gonna have to throw money at it, and that's fine. And you just have to accept that level of waste is there. The trick is just to make it visible. At least make that stuff visible to people and go, do you want to care about them? Cool, I'll just keep tallying it up, but that's fine for now. Maybe we'll have that conversation another day. But like I said, unfortunately, sometimes your job is to help other people spend money. Zen.
I know the person who's raised this question, and I'm in the same team. And the thought here is that a small little use case, just to bring everyone on the same page, is that you build something for the business teams, and they really love it. The end user enjoys it, and now they want more, and then they want more, and then they want more. So as a product guy, how can you control that narrative? How can you bring this up? This is quite a challenge. And how is strategic alignment a way of tackling this too? Because the business has just rolled out a very mad strategy. Oh, you can do it now, go for it.
Yeah. What you're hinting at there is a prioritization conversation. What's the most important thing? And so this again comes to that being that idea of you're part of the business first and your function second. If you take off your hat that's just for that particular user group for a moment and look at logically construct an argument to the business that that's the highest value thing, and if so, how would you quantify that? How would you convince someone else who's not in your area that work that's serving that particular business user is the highest value thing that our team could do right now? That story that I was telling you earlier about that product manager who was doing that analytics, that actually reshuffled some pretty significant priorities in the Solar Zero business when he spotted that and said, actually, you know what? There's a big opportunity for us right here if we tackle this particular problem now. And we did, and it actually had the biggest impact. So it's been able to take that broad business view and go, can you construct an argument for or against this thing that it is the highest value use of our time right now? And what metrics are you using around that? Are they, business metrics or time saved or whatever? And then once you can construct that narrative in your own mind and become convinced, again, taking off, what can be a biased viewpoint, can you have that conversation with someone else? Can you bring that conversation to someone else and go, look, right now, I believe this is the best use of our time, and here's why. You're not going to win that conversation every single time. Sometimes politics are a thing, silos are a thing, fiefdoms are a thing. But if you can build that whole of business viewpoint of this is the best use of our spend right now. Government departments are hard for this, right? Because the way that those money flows don't necessarily reflect logic that you would see in commercial organizations. So then it's about, okay, well, how can I draw a ring around this thing to go, okay, within this pool of things, this is the most important thing. And so, so it's basically been able to tell that story. Tell the story of why this is the most now, not only to yourself and not only using your own language, but using the language of the overall business or the overall organization.
Because it's not always about money either, especially in a government organisation where we're here to serve. So actually thinking about the value you're giving to a community or to who are our customers, right? So we don't always put it in financial terms, but financial terms always bite.
Yeah,
no matter what.
Yeah, and I mean that really is, it comes from, rather than thinking about and then there's the different dimensions of value. This is going to add revenue. It's like, okay, we've got a fixed amount of budget. What's the best use of that? How do we maximize the value of that budget? So it's that we talk about like time, variable scope, fixed scope, variable time kind of concepts. The same kind of thing. Fixed budget, vary the scope. How can we get the most valuable things for the given amount of money that we've been given to invest?
Once again, I'll just.
Yeah, I think there's a question over here. So, yeah. Yeah. Go to that side first. While you're doing that, I'll have a quick look at the questions online. Oops.
Maybe I'll not be the best person to ask this question in this forum, but as I've been in service delivery and customer service for a very long time. Sometimes do we think that the product managers and the product owners are so much focused on the delivery and how good the product is that they sometimes the post deployment is forgotten, and we don't see performance matrix or performance monitoring. And a simple thing is like a very good handover process, because at the end of the day it's about customer experience, right? No matter how good the product is, sometimes it is important that we do a proper handover, so the customer experience, because sometimes it's a user error, or most of the time it's a user error, but the handover is not correct, so everyone starts blaming the product. So how should they as product owners and product managers, how can we enable that thing so that the entire experience of that customer is absolutely delightful?
Yeah, and that's why I squeezed in that bit at the end around go to market, because I do feel of all those different sort of product areas and that taking a whole of business view, the go to market piece, the actual like how do we actually get this into the hands of a customer such that they're actually using it and it's not blowing up the support team or whatnot, is actually really, really important. And to your point, it often gets viewed as a very mechanical kind of thing. All right, well, we'll ship it into production and then we'll release it, we'll turn it on and we move on kind of thing. It's like, no, actually as a product manager, doesn't matter until it's actually generated some value for that customer. And if it's exploding and they're all on the phone to the support people, that's not generating value. If anything, it's generating cost for your business. So that go-to-market piece, particularly for organizations which have that sort of product owner delivery kind of focus, the situation that you're highlighting, incredibly common. It happens all the time. So what I kind of challenge those product owners with is like, you're not done until it's usefully delivering value in the hands of the customer. We talk in Agile about definition of done. Well, definition of done is delivering value to a customer. It's not code complete, deployed, and production, turned on kind of thing. In Orion, we used to have these crazy conversations about done, and then there was done, and then there was done. I think we got to done, and that was, when it was actually being used by the customer, and we could see that it was actually okay and generating the value that we expected it to. Any product managers that work for me, I hold them accountable for that. I'm going to hold them. I'm not going to hold them accountable. There's all these conversations about how do you measure the work of product managers. Do you, if the product manager says this is going to earn us $100 million, do I hold them accountable if it doesn't earn $100 million? I don't, but what I hold them accountable for is knowing what it is earning us. Like if we thought this was going to earn us $1 million or save us $1 million, and it saved us, it earned us $500,000, I'm going to talk to that product manager and go, right, what's going on? I'm not concerned about the gap. What I'm concerned about is what you're going to do about it. Do you see it? Tell me that you see it. Tell me that this thing we just released, what impact did it have? How did it compare to what we thought it was going to? And then given those two things, what are we going to do next? Should we do more of it? Should we do less of it? Should we turn it off because it's causing chaos in customer support and costing us a whole pile of money? That's what I hold them accountable for, is knowing what happened. If they're just like, done, throw it over the wall, no. So you're not going to last very long on my team if that's your attitudes.
Actually, question will be more suited for your bigger organization. We have multiple products going on, and you mentioned about the product. So I am part of the product. So what happens?
Yeah, good.
So what happens? The question will be about waste as well. Like we create a lot of technical debt. When we are working in simple different product teams and we are not interacting with each other. I'm talking about the product. How we can solve this? Because if they are not talking to each other, the product owners, they are so focused on their product rather than creating the technical debt for the product. And that's the place where we basically struggle. I have a follow-up as well. So
yeah, well, let's tackle that. It's a good question. When I talk about this notion of, okay, well, we need to operate more cross-functionally, I'm not taking away from the fact that practices are still a thing. So we need to be able to do marketing really well. We need to be able to do technology really well. We need to be able to do sales really well. I'm not, in a cross-functional way of working, I'm assuming that the departments as a practice, as a whatever term you want to use for it, are actually collaborating with each other. And that, particularly at that assuming that the technology thing that's being built in this squad, and so our architectural practices are actually happening. And also, like, slicing is also a thing. So how you slice this matters too. So for SolarZero, we sliced the customer journey under 2 product managers. The journey from lead to sale and installation is one slice, and then the journey from sale onwards, we have quite a long contract period onwards, and so we've got product managers. They look after those different parts of the customer journey. So that's how I've sliced it. It's sort of in terms of the various bits of technology, the various substantiators that made the most sense about where to draw the line. But there are still common things that sit underneath it, Salesforce platforms and hardware platforms and whatnot. I'm assuming that if I've got one Salesforce developer sitting in one team and one Salesforce as one squad and one Salesforce developer sitting in another squad, that they're actually going to talk to each other about Salesforce best practice, and they're not going to build something in isolation that blows up another part of the business. That does require focus. That's probably a lesson I learned, is that you can't rely on that stuff happening organically. You have to actually be really pushing these areas about, like, how do you work as a practice? How do you regularly come together? Product practice, I always make sure that product managers get together regularly. Most generally, when I run a product practice, we have daily stand-ups, and as a product practice, so we're operating not a stand-up at this sort of way of slicing, operating at this way of slicing. And we're talking about, what are we doing? What do we need help from other areas? What is our spidey sense telling us that we might be impacting another squad? There's, across those 2 SolarZero squads, there's some interesting stuff going on right now where one is kind of impacting the other, and so the product managers are collaborating around that to make sure it happens. It's just realizing that this is as important as this way of working. Just because we turn it on its side doesn't mean that what was previously happening in the silo is unimportant.
But what happens in our case, like I work as an architect, so the product owner or a manager looks us like we are more of like enablers for them in terms of technology, right? But they see us like a blocker, because we do have our governance process.
Bloody architects, bloody governance.
So, like,
common conversation. I encourage the product managers to have a really close relationship with architects. I mean, my view is that architects are actually product managers for a technology product. You know, if you think of the platform as an internal product within your organization, I didn't talk about the notion of team topologies, different sort of squad topology that you can have, where you can have squads that are very customer aligned, but actually you'll have common platforms that sit underneath that need their own care and roadmaps and whatnot as well. If the product manager is perceiving the architect as a blocker, that's a problem. And I will step in and probably work with this, you know, as if I'm in a CPO role in that organization, I'll be sitting with the CTO to try and unpick that. Like, what's going on here? I'll try and convince myself, is that, okay, what is the value of that governance structure? What is the value of this piece of architectural evolution that we need to do? But I'm not doing it from a, tell me the value. I'm doing it from a, hey, I want to work with you to help articulate what that value is. I remember when I was at Harmony, I was working with their platform team, and we were working on a IAM and the access management platform. It needed refreshing, and the CTO had been talking for ages and ages and ages about how we need to do the work, and he was getting blocked by the CPO, who I was advising. And one day, I remember this vividly, it was late in the evening, I was sitting with one of the more junior front-end developers, and I said, look, why every time we have to go through these like 3 layers? Like, what is, I thought that middle layer, I thought we were trying to get rid of that middle layer. What's going on? Like, why do we need that? And he said, oh, that's because we haven't changed the IAM. We haven't done that piece of platform work. I'm like, so if we did that work, that would mean we can stop working with that particular piece of technology. And at that point, that there was only a couple of people in the organization who could work on it. It was about 20% of the time in the squad that was spent doing this particular operation. I was able to go to the CPO and go, hey, you remember that conversation you've been having with the CTO about IAM and why we're not doing it? Did you know that if we did that, we could make our squads about 20% faster? And he went, what? Hang on. Why has nobody explained that to me before? I'm like, well, I'm explaining it to you now. And boom, that IAM work got prioritized, and I think it got implemented. And so it was being able to take, actually help not only act as, I'm not just going to act as I'm trying to block the technology work. I'm going to go, okay, technology person, you really care about this, and you're not doing that because you're trying to annoy me. You're doing that because you're doing it for there's some value. Help me articulate that value to the rest of the business. And as I said, that IAM thing was a great example of just this complete light bulb moment. As soon as I explained it to the CPO that this could make us go 10-20% faster, let's do it. Make sure it's green. As long as the light's green, you're good. Yeah, just go for it. I can just repeat the question. So.
Actually, I don't have a question, but we're just seeking an opinion based on your experience.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Most of these issues, we discussed quite a few of them. Do you think they could be addressed through systematic implementation of frameworks like SAFe, Scale Result Framework? There was one slide, and I think the book Project to Product is heavily mentioned in when you go through the SAFe materials. It's mentioned on quite a few occasions. So I was just wondering if this could help.
Yeah, I think I'm going to annoy people by saying yes and no. So I'm not a big SAFe fan, but what I am a fan of it is that when it's used in the right way. SAFe is very good at taking giant organization that is heavily waterfall, incredibly siloed, and breaking out of that model and actually starting to create some better ways of working. The problem I have with SAFe is I don't find it to be customer outcome focused enough. Like, that is its fundamental thing, is that it loses in the heavy sort of process beating approach that it takes. It tends to lose focus on the actual notion of coming together as a cross-functional outcome. But, giant organization trying to transform, SAFe is a really good model to use that. Organization that's trying to grow, I would encourage to use a value stream focused kind of model. Actually start off with that value stream slicing and don't use SAFe. But there are good principles in SAFe. There, a lot of some of the release train stuff. There's a lot of good principles in there. If there's one thing I've learned, because I'm old and I've been around a while, it's not one. There's no one framework to rule them all. Unfortunately, it's about as you get further on in your career, you have all these frameworks in your brain. It's about going, okay, here's the problem that we're trying to solve. We're trying to create a better cross-functional way of working. Flip through my mental sort of list of frameworks. This is the one that I think suits us right now, and it might suit a particular time and space right now. Like actually, right now we just need to focus on getting more collaboration. It might be more cost, might create a more expensive operating model, but we just need to solve collaboration. But hopefully we'll apply it, we'll solve it. We might actually change the framework later because we'll go, okay, it's now not the best framework for the problem we're trying to solve. Scrum and SAFe have got themselves a really bad name as a result of people trying to use them as the one true framework to rule them all. They have a use case, they're suitable for a particular thing, they're good at solving a particular problem, but then they won't solve all the problems always.
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, thank you.
Cool, how are we going for time, Butter? Yeah, may have gone. I think it may have run out of batteries. That's okay. Cool. I think we're a little bit over time, so let's hold it there. Thank you so much, everyone. Just a reminder, if I get back to the right screen, of the upcoming conference. And like I said, if you want to connect with me, if you want to talk more about this kind of stuff, if I could help your organization. I am now in consulting mode. If you're interested in just having a coffee, virtual or otherwise, on some of these concepts and about how it could help, please connect with me. I'm always happy to have a chat. And I'll be around for a while, so happy to chat with you here. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us online as well. We'll be shutting the live stream down shortly. Thanks, everyone. Oh, sorry. Do you want to just grab the microphone? It's just there. So I run these events myself, and so I'm so used to just closing things off.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thanks a lot, Anthony, for coming down from Auckland, especially, and thank you everyone who joined in person. I happened to meet this gentleman. He was the first one to come in. Sorry, I never got your name. And he is from Rotorua, and he was struggling to find a community where he could join, join into such spaces where you have like-minded people. So I've been struggling personally myself while running Product Tank Tauranga, and raised this pain point to mind the product, which is the mother community for Product Tank. And we have come up with a small idea to expand our horizon. And now we're going to include Bay of Plenty and Waikato region as well, and do meetups with different tech organizations so that we can have greater visibility. There are also some really great courses available online free of cost through these organizations, and I'm happy to give them away to all the community members so that you have something to take away from the community at the end of the day.
If you scan that QR code, it will take you to the Product Aotearoa website. It'll take you to the conference page, but at the top of that page, there is a link to join the Product Aotearoa Slack channel. So we have a New Zealand-wide Slack channel. It's probably 600-700 people in there. It's a great place if you sort of go, look, I'm trying to find out X, or hey, I've seen this road mapping tool. Has anyone used it? Or I'm trying to solve this problem. It's a really vibrant community. You've got several hundred product people from across New Zealand, some really amazingly smart people in there who are always happy to help. So so please make use of that resource.
Yeah, if you scan in the next 5 minutes, you get a free ticket to the conference.
Please don't get me in trouble with the conference organizers, please.
So thank you everyone.
Cool. Yeah. All right, thanks all. I think there's some drinks left.
We've still got some pizza, we've still got some beer. So,
you might need to power that up again, because otherwise you won't be able to shut down the live stream. Sharing studio.
You might say that. Like question around ownership, and you started talking straight about back in the old days, the startup days, it was like straight away.
There was a reason why I said that, because I would assume that would be a thing in your organisations. Yeah.
100%. I mean, days at Logitech, it was the whole culture was trying to create this startup environment. It's the easiest thing to lose and the hardest thing to come.
Yeah, and people don't really understand what it means as well. It's like they don't realize, like, oh, we should just have like small teams. Like, no, it's not about that. It's about that culture of problem to solve, existential threat. If we don't solve it, get shit done.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you're not around during those periods of existential threat, it can be
Engineers who have only ever worked in large organizations, yes, genuinely hard. Yeah.
You know, when the going's good, it's good.
Yeah, and I mean, I do wonder how much we're going to see a bit of a change, a bit of a shift, because right now there are even larger organizations